survived from Indus Valley Civilization is only the part that stone, metal, climate, and power allowed us to see. That is the familiar edge of the story, not the whole of it. The deeper question is how geography, resources, institutions, rival decisions, and ordinary people carried Indus Valley Civilization toward that moment. Follow those pressures in sequence, and the famous image stops being an isolated legend. It becomes the visible result of choices that could still have ended differently. Begin where the people inside Indus Valley Civilization had to begin, with the physical setting and the first dated traces. Then move through expansion, pressure, conflict, adaptation, collapse, or survival without skipping the links between them. Objects, buildings, inscriptions, landscapes, and written accounts will not always agree. Those disagreements are useful because they reveal which parts are secure, which depend on later memory, and where the strongest competing explanation still survives. The Indus Valley Civilization built large planned cities with advanced drainage long before many later empires. Architecture turns policy into a physical commitment. Materials must arrive, skilled work must be coordinated, and the structure must keep functioning after the ceremony ends. What happened next reveals whether this was a temporary advantage or a change strong enough to reshape the choices available to everyone around it. Mature Harappan phase flourished roughly between 2600 and 1900 BCE across parts of present-day Pakistan, northwest India and Afghanistan. The date changes the story because it decides which event can be a cause, which can only be a consequence, and which famous connection is impossible. For the people living through it, the shift appeared as work, food, tax, danger, movement, status, or protection long before it became a sentence in a chronicle. Mohenjo-daro and Harappa show baked brick streets, wells and drainage channels built for dense urban life. What survives is the final layer of a longer process of quarrying, transport, measurement, labor, repair, and control over access. The scale is visible in repetition. One trace can show contact, while the same pattern across several secure contexts points to an organized system. Dholavira used large reservoirs, channels, and carefully planned stone architecture to manage water in the dry landscape of Kutch. Rebuilding and reuse are part of the story because later rulers often changed an older monument while borrowing the authority already attached to its site. This is where the public image and daily reality meet, because a decision only became history when other people built it, funded it, enforced it, or resisted it. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro was sealed with bitumen and placed inside a major public complex, although its exact ritual or civic purpose remains uncertain. Sacred institutions could organize calendars, wealth, diplomacy, law, and public identity, making ritual inseparable from political and economic power. The turning point was not automatic. Different choices remained open, and each depended on resources, information, alliances, and risks that were unevenly shared. Standard brick proportions appear across distant settlements, suggesting shared building practices without proving a single centralized ruler controlled every city. Authority becomes visible when orders turn into collected resources, standardized work, guarded space, repeated messages, or punishment that can be sustained over time. Independent sources do not need to tell the same story in the same words. Confidence rises when different kinds of evidence converge on the same sequence. Cubical stone weights followed consistent ratios and helped merchants measure goods across a wide trading network. Transport belongs inside the design story. The chosen material matters together with the route, season, tools, and repeated effort required to move it into position. The consequence matters more than the slogan because it shows who gained room to act, who lost it, and which pressure carried into the next stage. Indus seals depict animals, symbols, and short inscriptions, and some were used to mark goods or identity in trade and administration. This was power measured in cargoes, protected routes, credit, warehouses, and the political relationships that kept goods moving through dangerous water or contested land. A dramatic interpretation is strongest when the missing motive or conversation is left missing instead of being filled with invented certainty. The undeciphered Indus script is a major limit. Archaeologists can study objects and cities, but not full written voices. The words preserve a voice, but also an agenda. Date, audience, authorship, and the reason the text survived determine which parts can be treated as testimony. The next generation inherited more than the event itself. It inherited damaged or protected roots, institutions, memories, skills, and political limits. Mesopotamian texts mention trade with a region called Meluha, which many scholars connect with the Indus world, while imported materials confirm long-distance exchange. Every trade route created winners and vulnerabilities at the same time. Prosperity depended on distant suppliers, secure passage, and partners who could withdraw cooperation. That longer afterlife explains why a decision that looked successful in the moment could create a vulnerability visible only years later. Carnelian beads, shell objects, copper tools, and specialized workshops reveal skilled production moving between cities and coastal routes. Imports, harbor works, weights, coins, and shipwrecks can reveal the reach of a network more clearly than a ruler's claim to control it. The strongest rival explanation must account for the same dates, material traces, and practical limits rather than surviving only because it sounds possible. Like Egypt or Mesopotamia, the largest Indus cities have not produced obvious royal tombs or giant statues naming individual kings. Burial choices concentrate belief, rank, family memory, labor, and access to wealth, yet an elite tomb can never stand in for every person in the society. At human scale, the result was not abstract. It altered where people could live, travel, worship, trade, serve, speak, or remain safe. That absence does not prove the society had no rulers. It means political organization must be reconstructed from streets, standards, storage. A title proves less than the system behind it. The stronger question is who controlled access, who carried out decisions, and who absorbed their cost. The surviving record favors durable objects and powerful voices, so silence must be treated as missing evidence rather than automatic proof of absence. After about 1900 BCE, many large cities declined as populations shifted towards smaller settlements and different regional traditions. Later rebuilding can place several centuries in the same view, so a dramatic ruin must be separated into the different communities that created it. Follow this clue into the next dated change, because consequence is the bridge that turns an isolated fact into a coherent historical story. The cleanest explanation of Indus Valley Civilization is not automatically the strongest one. Put the leading account beside its best rival and ask what each predicts about dates, routes, damage, settlement, written testimony, and human behavior. The better explanation should cover more of those independent traces with fewer unsupported assumptions, where both still fit. The disagreement belongs in the conclusion instead of being hidden for the sake of a smoother story. Now follow Indus Valley Civilization beyond its famous turning point. Separate the immediate result from the institutions, roots, memories, technologies, communities, or political limits that survived into the next generation. That longer view often reverses the simple verdict of victory or defeat. It shows whether the event transformed a system, interrupted it briefly, or created a new problem that later rulers inherited without fully understanding its origin. Remaining uncertainty around Indus Valley Civilization is not a failure of the story. It is a boundary around what the sources can support. Strong history marks that boundary clearly, compares rival explanations, and avoids filling silence with invented certainty. That honesty makes the confirmed evidence more powerful, not less dramatic. It also identifies the next inscription, layer, date, or scientific test that could genuinely change the conclusion. The lasting importance of Indus Valley Civilization is not one isolated fact. It is the relationship between physical evidence, organized power, human choices, and the consequences that followed. Once those layers are kept together, the past stops looking like a legend and starts looking like people solving problems under pressure with imperfect information. Return to the opening clue and notice how much more precisely its meaning can now be stated.